Hello and welcome to Seth World of Warcraft Guides. We are here for Protection Paladin Specking this go-around. That is PvE Protection Paladin Specking. Now, without further ado, I will get on with it. However, please note that everything mentioned in all of my videos are mere suggestions, and I would highly recommend you customize. Goodness, I almost said specialize. Customize every suggestion that I make, that anyone ever makes, to tailor your own specific playstyle and needs, as you will always play better with something that you personally know and have created than someone else's cookie-cutter style suggestion, including my own. Without further ado, we shall enter the protection tree of paladins. For simply choosing protection, we will get the spell Avenger's Shield, very important, hits 3 targets, does pretty good holy damage. I believe it's a combination holy physical. And 15-second cooldown, pretty good. 30-yard range, good as well. Very important, very staple ability of a Prot Paladin. Next we have Touched by the Light, which did in fact used to be a talent. Now it's given to you for choosing protection, which provides you a 15% stamina buff. Also gives you 8% hit for spells, so you don't need to worry about your spells hitting as much. Less hit rating you have to worry about as a tank, the better. And also, it increases your spell power by an amount equal to 60% of your strength. So basically, paladins no longer need to stack spell power, as you might be familiar with if you played through Watlook, compared to BC, where tank paladins actually needed spell power. Embarrassing. Alright, next we're going to hit Vengeance, which each time you take damage, you gain 5% of damage taken as AP, up to max 10% of your total health. Basically, the more damage you take, the more damage you're going to deal out, and then it caps out at some point. Basically, it helps keep up with, it improves your threat gen as the fight goes on, because people's DPS tends to increase as the fight goes on as well, with various procs building up as you go. Next we have Judgments of the Wise, which your judgments grant you 30% base mana over 10 seconds. Since they altered the talent tree, so Divine Plea doesn't last forever now, which I loved in Watlook, and unfortunately am going to miss forever and ever and ever. And they changed some other mana-based stuff around, like spiritual attunement, things like that. So this will basically keep your mana up, or that was the concept behind it. And finally, at level 80, goodness, our Mastery of Protection, Divine Bulwark, which is basically where you get all of your block from. Which basically, it gives you a base 24% chance to block melee attacks, and each point of mastery will increase it by 2.25% or 2.25%. So basically your mastery is now block rating, in layman's terms. So let's hit the protection tree and get into this. So first we have Divinity, a favorite from Watlook that a lot of people enjoyed, which increases all healing done not only to you but by you by 6%. So getting 6% more healing from your healers is obviously good, but especially with your Word of Glory now, that's pretty awesome, because you can use that to self-heal, so you'll be getting 6% more from that too. So you definitely want to take Divinity. Before I get too far into this, I do want to point out that this tree has really good cohesion. It works really well with other talents in the same tree. I might do a separate video specifically on how well this tree plays together and how well all of the percent increases stack, but that's for another time. We have Seals of the Pure, which increases the damage of your Seal of Righteousness, Truth, and Justice by 12% when capped out. And finally, we have Eternal Glory, which gives your Word of Glory a 30% chance to not consume Holy Power. That's pretty awesome, because then you might be able to get 2 Word of Glories off. Unfortunately, with this coming patch, they are putting a 20-second cooldown on Prot and Ret Word of Glory, though, so keep that in mind. However, this is still a worthy talent to seriously look at, because you could do a Word of Glory, it'll be on cooldown, but if this procs, you still have 3 points, you could do a Shield of Righteous after that. That's pretty cool, because then you get the heal off and you get some threat built. So, definitely a good one, definitely take it, highly recommended. Again, expect to backfill, so don't think, oh, well, he didn't take that, so that's no good. Expect to backfill. Again, also, I will remind you, this is a PvE build. Very important for this next row that you remember this is a PvE build. Now, we have Judgments of the Just, which will increase the melee and ranged attack speed of the target by a bit, and also increases duration of your Seal of Justice. I'm focusing on boss tanking. I mean, trash tanking is important too, but usually if you can boss tank, you can trash tank. Now, reducing the attack speed of the boss, that's a nice thing to do. It'll reduce incoming damage, but that should never be something required of a tank, in my opinion. Basically, if you're going, I don't know, it just seems a little awkward that you need to worry about reducing the enemy's attack speed. It's kind of weird. Frankly, I think it makes a little more sense in PvP to pick that up. Also, Seal of Justice is not going to do anything when you're fighting a boss, so it's a really questionable talent. I see a lot of people pick it up, so it can't be all bad. If you think that it'll be good for you, go for it. I'm not saying completely ignore it. I'm just personally saying I don't want it. Next, we have Toughness. 10% free armor value increase means more DR. Obvious why that's a good choice. Definitely take it. Next, we have Improved Hammer of Justice, which reduces its cooldown by 10 seconds. Not bad. Stuns aren't necessarily a bad thing, but with every paladin having Rebuke now, you don't need to depend on your Hammer of Justice to interrupt. You'll have that. So reducing this is more of a PvP thing. I want to have my stun up more often. It does have PvE use, absolutely. If you feel you need it, go ahead and take it. I personally feel that I do not need 20 seconds shaved off my stun. So I'm going to take these 2 points and grab the 12% increased damage from my seals, because more damage means more threat. Self-explanatory why that's awesome. Next we have Hallowed Ground, which will increase the damage of Consecration and decrease its mana cost. Now, something to note, they changed a bit, Consecration a bit, when Cataclysm came out. Consecration now is a 30-second cooldown instead of a 10-second cooldown, costs a ridiculously large amount of mana, and as a result of those two things, you will not be using it half as much as you used to, in Watlook especially. It's quite disappointing. Now, it does have a ridiculously high mana cost, so picking this up simply for the mana cost may be a very good thing if you find yourself needing to consecrate to hold AoE aggro more efficiently. However, you can now use Holy Wrath, and your Hammer of Righteous hits everything now. So, between those two, I personally tend to not have issues AoE tanking. So, this is a bit of a questionable talent. It's good, don't get me wrong. This is a fantastic talent as far as talents go. But for my personal playstyle, and this is a perfect example, I tend to shy away from using Consecrate as much as I can. So improving a spell that I try to not use seems a little weird. Like, it's not a logical thought process. Now, if you personally love Consecrate and you need Consecrate in your rotation, even though it has a higher cooldown, and you need it to feel you're doing your job right, or you just supplement Holy Wrath with Consecrate instead, and you manage to hold aggro through everything else, your rotation's just personally different, then take it. You know, this is a perfect example of why I say tailor it to your own style, because I'm not going to take this. But if you use Consecrate every time it's up, if you feel you need to be using it, then take this talent. I'm not going to, because that's not my playstyle. Simple fact. Next we have Sanctuary, which every Prot Paladin must take if they're going to tank. Now, I know, you say, oh, you're a hypocrite, you say make it your own, and then you tell us we have to take this. Well, this is where you get your uncritability, so sorry, you actually do have to take this talent. Not only that, but it's a fantastic talent. The first bit says you won't get critically hit, basically. The next one gives you 10% free DR, why wouldn't you want that? And then also, you get 3% mana back when you block or dodge. So it's all good, it's all awesome, it's all applicable to every situation you could ever find yourself in, basically. So, I mean, there's no reason to not take that talent anyway, and you have to if you want to appropriately tank. Next, grab Hammer of the Righteous, because it's an awesome ability, and it'll help you with AoE tanking. It basically hits everything. It does a combination of holy and physical damage to your target, as well as additional holy damage to that target and all the targets around you, I believe. Also gives you charge of holy power. It does share a cooldown with Crusader Strike, so basically the result of that is if you're AoE tanking or in a situation with more than one mob, I would highly recommend using Hammer of Righteous. If you're boss tanking, say Magma, and it's only him, Crusader Strike costs less mana and does marginally the same amount of damage. So it'll be more efficient to do Crusader Strike when single target tanking, and Hammer of Righteous, of course, when you're AoE tanking, or tanking more than one mob, depending on your definition of AoE. Some people say, oh, 2 mobs isn't AoE. So just keep that in mind. But yes, I would highly recommend this talent. Very important to have. Next, we have Wrath of the Lightbringer, which increases the damage of your, hey, I was just talking about this, Crusader Strike. More reason to use this for single target versus just spamming Hammer of Righteous the whole time like I see some Paladins doing. And also, it increases the damage of your Judgment. And on top of that, it will increase the critical strike chance of your Holy Wrath and Hammer of Wrath spells by, when fully capped out, 30%. Now, you'll see that your Crusader Strike and Judgment will do double the damage they did prior to this. Oh my god, amazing. I mean, that's double the threat generated from it, or more, because they have holy components to it, and you have your Righteous Fury on. So it's like, oh my god, why would you never take this? But that's me. And then on top of that, I personally use my Holy Wrath for AoE tanking. It's a very important part of it, unless there's like a ridiculously large amount of mobs like in Stonecore, but increasing its crit chance by 30%, obviously a good thing, and increasing the crit chance of your Hammer of Wrath by 30%. Self-explanatory why that's good. Faster you kill the boss, less time you have to spend tanking it, less time you can die. Also, on top of that, it tends to be that point where you can start using Hammer of Wrath. A lot of trees, like, I know the Warlock tree, I think Affliction, and maybe the Hunter tree, I don't know. Some of the other classes have talents where when the boss is below X% health, you will do X more damage. I think Molten Fury in the Fire Mage tree or something like that says that. So by increasing the crit chance of your Hammer of Wrath, you'll be able to keep up with that spike in threat gen from the DPS. So just more reason to take this already awesome talent. Next, we're going to be looking at Reckoning, which you have a 20% chance after blocking to basically double swing within the next 8 seconds for your next 4 weapon swings. This is awesome for multiple reasons. Basically, if you get this proc, you are making double the threat in the same amount of time you would make the normal amount of threat. You white damage for 2k, and you have this, bam, it turns into 4k because you got to swing twice in the same second. Not only that, but if you're like me and follow my recommendations, you will be tanking with Seal of Truth, or Seal of Vengeance if some of you didn't catch the name change that came with Kata. It took me a little bit to get used to that too. It will stack faster. If you have this, and the target doesn't have any stacks on it, your Reckoning will have you get a full stack on them in 3 swings versus 5. That means you will be making optimal threat generation in 3 swings versus 5. That means that you will be doing your job the best you can in 3 swings instead of 5. Very, very awesome talent. Not only that, but as the fight goes on, occasionally getting this helps you keep up with the threat generation because you'll be doubling your threat for the next 4 swings essentially. I believe this is only on white damage. I don't know if this can give you a double swing if you do like Crusader Strike, if it'll give you another white hit. I'm pretty sure it doesn't, but if I'm wrong, go ahead and put that in the comment section below. But I'm pretty sure it can't proc give you a double swing off Crusader Strike. Alright, that's enough about that awesome talent, which I would highly suggest you take. And we have Shield of the Righteous. Again, one of my old favorites from Watlook, to be completely honest. This was a pretty cool talent. It gave Paladins a shield slam. They altered it with the new Holy Power system. It's now based off Holy Power, and I personally would recommend never using this unless you have 3 Holy Power to use it with. Simply because it tends to not be that powerful unless you have 3 Holy Power backing it, in which case it can be very powerful. Ridiculous how powerful this can be with 3 Holy Power. Using it at 2 is kind of like a desperate, oh my god, I need threat move. It's not really worth it. It's better to wait till 3, and then you can just make like a huge, steaming pile of threat. Which is really awesome. This and your Word of Glory are the 2 Holy Power dumps that Prot Paladins have. So definitely keep that in mind as you're tanking. Judge the situation prior and say, do I need to heal myself, or do I need to get a shield slam off to help kill this guy faster? Is the healer good on mana, or do I need to help and heal myself with an instant heal? You know, it's little things you need to keep in mind like that. But it is still a very good talent, and if anything, you need it to get to the next row, which is very important. Next, we have possibly my favorite talent in all of Cataclysm, which is what I have been asking for since BC. Grand Crusader basically gives your Crusader Strike and Hammer of Righteous, which again share the same cooldown, so it's like using the same spell almost, Every time they deal damage to the primary target, they have a chance of refreshing the cooldown on your Avenger's Shield. I've been saying this since BC. I've been saying, they should have a talent to either reduce the cooldown on Avenger's Shield or reset the cooldown, because it's a real pain in the ass to have to wait for that to make the pull. Finally, 2 expansions later? Oh, thank God, Blizzard started doing it. Alright. Ridiculously good talent, self-explanatory why it's good. This can pop up in combat, which is awesome, because Avenger's Shield creates a lot of threat on multiple targets, so again, it helps with your AoE tanking if there's only a few mobs there. If there's a lot of mobs, it still helps. So it's very nice talent, very long-awaited and much needed. It's a well-done talent, absolutely take it. Helps in almost every aspect. Next we have Vindication in the next row, which causes your Crusader Strike and Hammer of Righteous to reduce physical damage done to their primary targets by 10%. Done by their primary target, sorry. So basically, by doing your job, you will reduce the damage output of your target by 10%. This essentially, in the long run, means 10% damage reduction for your whole raid, basically. Because that boss, Magma, for example, is putting out 10% less damage with everything he does, because you hit him. That means that it'll be 10% less incoming damage on yourself, for one, and 10% less incoming damage on everyone else in the raid, for two. So, not only are you doing yourself and your healers a favor, but you're doing your DPS a favor too by making incoming damage reduced. Obvious why that's good, definitely want to take it. Next we have Holy Shield, which is no longer an active ability, which is kind of nice. It gives us a little bit more freedom in our rotation, if you will, if there is such a thing as a Prot Paladin, for a Prot Paladin, sorry. Basically, using your Shield of Righteous or Inquisition, which is your level 81 ability, which increases holy damage output. Oh, that also runs off Holy Power, so that'll be your third dump for Prot Pallies. But anyway, using Shield of the Righteous or Inquisition increases the amount of your shield blocks by additional 10%. So basically, you'll block 10% more damage. It's another source of well, not so much. It's 10% more DR, but the 10% isn't based off of, your armor. It's based off of how much you're already blocking, which kind of plays in with your mastery. So pretty much, it's still good. It's ridiculously good. It helps reduce incoming damage, which is a lot of what tanks are about. So you definitely want to pick this up because you will be using your Shield of Righteous a lot, and your Inquisition most likely a fair bit too. Next we have Guarded by the Light, which is a pretty damn awesome talent. It increases your Word of Glory by 10% when used to heal yourself. Awesome! And also Word of Glory grants Holy Shield. Awesome! In addition, any overhealing created will create a protective shield that lasts 6 seconds for the amount of overhealing done. So, what does this mean? It means I'll heal myself for 10% more than normal. Sweet. And I'll get Holy Shield from it. Awesome. Now there's no downside to choosing Word of Glory over Shield of Righteous. Woot. And I don't need to worry about overhealing. It won't turn into wasted holy power because it turns into a freaking bubble. Prot Pallies can priest bubble themselves if they wanted to. Good God, how awesome is that? Pretty damn self-explanatory why you want that talent. Next we have Divine Guardian, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It is definitely much better than when it first came out. So many paladins killed themselves with it when it first came out. It's so hilarious. They fixed it. They made it better. This is actually the second change that's been made to it. They changed it in Wotlick, which made it more viable, and it is definitely much more viable now. Basically, it provides a raid-wide 20% DR for everyone except the person who cast it. I don't know, that just seems a little awkward, but hey, whatever. This is awesome if you are like an off-tank. Because if you're main tanking, it's still a good thing too. It's just not really a GCD I'd want to throw at myself. I'd rather, pop something that would give me DR instead of the whole raid DR if I'm main tanking. Whereas if I'm off tanking and there happens to be a lot of raid damage incoming, let's say on Omnitron, there's a giant fire thing, I forget what it's called, security measure, fire security measure from Magmatron. That's happening, and all I'm doing is sitting there holding the attention of, I don't know, Arcanotron. Because he's got his bubble up, I can't attack him. Well, that means I don't have to worry about GCDs right now. Why not pop Divine Guardian and make everyone's lives a little easier, you know? It's a lot better in certain situations versus others. You can't really afford to throw that extra GCD in there. It is still a great talent. I would say if you feel you want to take it, go for it. Who knows, maybe I'll be taking it in this spec, Next, we'll go down and look at the next row, though. Sacred Duty. Your judgments have a 50% chance of making your next Shield of the Righteous critical strike guarantee. Not bad. Shield of the Righteous hits pretty damn hard, and then when you can get it to crit, it hits even harder, so pretty good. Helps you increase your guaranteed threat gen. And finally, we get Shield of the Templar, which reduces the cooldown of your Avenging Wrath, aka Wings, awesome, by a minute. Your Guardian of Ancient Kings by 120 seconds, or 2 minutes, which is awesome, because that's a very powerful cooldown that reduces incoming damage by, 50% or something? Some ridiculously good amount. And finally, your Divine Plea generates 3 Holy Power. Personally, what I like to do is I'll pick up this talent, and what I'll do is I'll get 3 Holy Power, use Inquisition, that way I get maximum benefit from it, and that'll increase my holy damage output. Pop Avenging Wrath Wings, so I'll get a percentage increase on top of that percentage holy damage increase, and then I'll pop Divine Plea and get a Shield of the Righteous off. That way that's benefiting from Inquisition, from Wings, and that was my phone, and a 3-point Holy Power stack because the Divine Plea gave it to me. It's a very nice little run through there. Sometimes I'll do Judge, then Shield of the Righteous if I picked up Sacred Duty, because then I might get a guaranteed crit that's benefiting from Inquisition and Wings. It's just really nice to be able to energize yourself with 3 Holy Power out of nowhere. It is ridiculously high threat increase. It's really, really awesome. Okay, so that leaves, 2 points to get to the final talent here? So this would be a very good time to decide between, oh, well, I want some extra crit chance for my Shield of the Righteous versus, oh, I really want that Hallowed Ground to improve my Consecrate. Now, as I explained, I generally don't use Consecrate that much. I, however, use Shield of the Righteous fairly often, at least more often than Consecrate. So I'm going to take Sacred Duty. You could easily grab Divine Guardian and one of 2 in the others, and then backfill later if you want to as well. It's a great point to customize. And speaking of customizing, after we place this last talent, you have 10 points to customize all you want. Aren't you lucky? Now, this is used to be one of my most beloved, most favorite, most delicious talents in the world, and they destroyed it in Cataclysm. It's still good, but it's not as good as it used to be because now you have to activate it instead of it being that lovely little safety net of a pillow it used to be. Ardent Defender, as you might have recalled, used to, this is in the past tense, it used to, whenever you received damage, an attack that would kill you, pop you up to, 15, 30%? Something like that, 15 or 30% health. It was awesome. It's like, oh, I can tank something and it doesn't matter if I'm gonna die, because I won't. It's just like, oh, it's impossible for me to die once every 2 minutes. Haha. Now, unfortunately, you might notice it's 3 minutes, and it is an active ability. You have to know you're going to die. Anyway, it's pretty nice because it's a good cooldown. It'll give you DR of 20% for 10 seconds, period. Which is awesome. That doesn't even need to be when Ardent Defender is active, I think. Feel free to... Feel free to correct me on that, but, I mean, it looks like a separate thing, but at the same time it doesn't. I do believe you need to activate it for that 20%. That's a little funky wording there. Because it says, reduces damage taken by 20% for 10 seconds, period. I'm pretty sure they're not going to give you an additional 20% DR, but I could be wrong. Blizzard's done crazier stuff. I'm pretty sure that's while it's active, though. Also, while Ardent Defender is active, the next attack that would otherwise kill you would cause you to jump up to 15% of your max health. So, that is still a wonderful part of the talent. That is still a fantastic talent. The only downside is you need to activate it prior to actually receiving the killing blow. Otherwise, you will die a horrible, painful death. So, it's a good safety net, especially if you're sitting really low and you're expecting some high damage to come in and you're like, hello healers, hello, hello, and you've already used your lay on hands, bam, Ardent Defender, and you give them just that little bit more time to get that heal off. Really good. Plus the 20% DR you can't complain with at all. That's DR is DR, DR is fantastic. DR is what we live for. Now we've unlocked the other 2 trees. Holy, let's see. Arbiter of the Light increases critical chance of your Judgment and Templar's Verdict. Templar's Verdict we don't have, so that would be 12% more crit chance on Judgment. If you remember, we increased the damage of our Judgment by 100%, so if we can increase the chance it crits, that's really awesome. So just keep that in mind. We're not going to put any points in until we look at them all first. Next we have Protector of the Innocent, which used to be amazing, and then the hot fix from hell ruined it. It says, casting a targeted heal on any target, except yourself, also heals for an additional X amount. That used to not have that except yourself clause. That used to make Word of Glory so ridiculously awesome. And then they hot fixed the bastard, and put that little thing in there, and oh, that made me so mad. I'm like, no! So that's pretty much pointless unless you actually use your Word of Glory to heal other people, which you really don't have the time for in some serious tanking situations. Next we have Judgments of the Pure, which will increase your casting and melee haste by 9% for a minute every time you judge. Now, this sounds really attractive. This sounds really awesome. Ooh, haste, I can stack my censure on them faster. True, but when you stop and think about it, most tank weapons have a 2.6 attack speed. If we put all 3 points in, that's 9%. Let's round up to 10 to make math easier. So we've got a 2.6 attack speed. What's 10% of 2.6? 0.26. 2.6 minus 0.26. That's going to be 2.34. So I shaved 0.3 seconds off my swing. Is 0.3 seconds on an attack swing gonna make the difference between life or death as a tank? No. 0.3 seconds off of a cast for a healer can make a life or death difference, but a swing timer reduction of 0.3 seconds is not going to make a life or death difference as a tank. Now, if you're using Seal of Insight and you're doing some goofy little thing, maybe, but not in a situation with Magma. A 0.3 second faster tick from Seal of Insight is not going to save your ass from his mangle. I'm sorry, it's not. So that sounds really attractive. 9% haste for a minute, oh my god! But 9% melee haste off of a medium time weapon is not going to save anyone's life in the role that you're playing. I'm sorry, it's not. It's pretty cool. If you think you want it, go for it. I'm just saying, after you do the math, it sounds a lot less impressive than it looks. Next, we've got Eye for an Eye, which all magical attacks against you have 40% chance to cause 30% of the damage taken back to the attacker as well. That's pretty cool. That helps increase your threat gen on casting bosses. That's pretty neat. It's a little more appealing in PvP scenarios so that that mage that keeps running away from you is less inclined to attack you because he's killing himself. But it has some very viable purposes in PvE. It's pretty damn cool, to be honest. I like the way they reworked it. Next we have Crusade, which will increase the damage of Crusader Strike, Hammer of Righteous. I use both of those, and Templar's Verdict. Oh, I don't use that. And also the healing and damage of your Holy Shock. Don't use that either. In addition, for 15 seconds after you kill an enemy that yields experience or honor, your Holy Light heals for an additional 300% when you put points in. When I kill a boss, usually the fight's over and I don't need to heal. So whatever. Don't have Holy Shock, don't have Templar's Verdict. So basically that'll be 30% increase on Crusader Strike and Hammer of Righteous. Now if we look back at Wrath of the Lightbringer, we got a 100% increase on Crusader Strike already. So if we take this, that's 130% on Crusader Strike. Damn, that's sexy. Next we have Improved Judgment, which will increase the range of judgment by 20 yards. And let's take a quick look at the second row of Ret really quick. Movement speed. Oh, I'm sorry, they changed this. How annoying. Basically, you'll get Holy Power when struck by Stun, Fear, Immobilize, any CC. Oh, and you do gain a movement speed increase. Not good, not bad. It's kind of a mediocre talent for PvE tanking. Just my opinion. Rule of Law would increase critical strike chance of your Crusader Strike, Hammer Righteous, and Word of Glory. Hey, I use all 3 of those. Oh my gosh. And finally, Guardian's Favor reduces cooldown of Guardian Protection and Hand of Freedom. Meh, whatevs. So, For these last 10 points, keep in mind they are always, 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 always customization points. However, my humble suggestion would be Crusade for 30% damage increase on Crusader Strike and Hammer of Righteous. Improved Judgment for 20 yards, that way you can pick up mobs at a range a little easier. 15% increased chance on Crusader Strike, Hammer of Righteous, and Word of Glory, because you are going to be using all three of those very often. And with these final 2 points, it is very tough to pick between Eye for an Eye and Arbiter of the Light for 12% more crit on your Judgment. I'm personally going to grab 12% more crit on my Judgment, just for higher threat gen. If you find yourself in more situations where you'd rather be doing recoil damage to casters, take Eye for an Eye. Again, this has merely been my humble suggestion to you as Sethuldor, the Paladin of Blade's Edge, in the Guild Sacrilege, on the topic of PvE Protection Paladin Specking. Thank you for listening. Keep in mind, all of this was simply suggestions. Please make it your own. I cannot explain to you how important it is that you do. And again, thank you for watching. If you like this video, please thumb up, subscribe, share it with your friends, do whatever you'd like to do with it. I would much appreciate anything you can do. If you have personal suggestions about a Prot Paladin spec, please word them carefully and politely in the comment section below. For example, oh, I find it weird that you didn't take Hallowed Ground and instead took Arbiter of the Light. I personally would do this and this, but I appreciate your input. Something like that. Or, this build was a little off from what I normally do. Here's a link to what I normally do. Plop. Don't be all, oh, that's stupid, how could you ever pick that? That's just rude. This is obviously an opinion. There are billions of ways to do this the right way. Well, I don't know about billions, but there's a bunch of different ways to do this the right way. So, just, be polite. Anyway, again, thank you for watching. It was fun to make this for you guys. Can't wait to put out another one, and I will see you guys next time.